Welcome back to the Life of Phys Podcast, where we explore the stories behind creativity, resilience, and the people who inspire us to keep pushing forward. I'm your host, Tyson Martin. Today's guest is someone who has mastered the art of capturing real moments. Mirae Campbell has a rare gift, the ability to freeze the most authentic, candid moments and turn them into stories that feel alive. Based in Squamish, British Columbia, Mirae has carved her own path in the world of adventure and action sports photography, documenting life where wild places and vibrant communities meet. A self-taught creator, adventurer, and passionate visual storyteller, she's worked with some of the world's most iconic brands. From Burton Snowboards, to Red Bull, to Tourism Whistler, and many more. But what makes Mirae truly special is more than her client list. It's her connection to the people. As she says, I'm a people person first and a photographer second. Her work is shaped by the community, the landscape that raised her, and the people who inspire her to keep creating. In this conversation, we talk about growing up connected to nature, how surfing and snowboarding fuel her creativity, the mentors who helped her believe in herself, and what it means to build a creative life that's grounded in purpose. This is a story about movement, belonging, and finding your creative rhythm, and I am so excited to share this one with you. Now let's get to my conversation with Mirae Campbell.
My name is Mirae Campbell. I live in the traditional and unceded territories of Squamish, British Columbia, currently. Before that, I lived in Whistler for 8 years, and preceding that, I lived in Maple Ridge. So we moved around a lot when I was a kid, but from 12 to 23, I lived in Maple Ridge, and then I moved to Whistler. So I haven't left the sea to sky since.
Nothing like living in Whistler.
Yeah, nothing like living in Whistler. Nothing like living in Whistler, pursuing your passions and moving every year because housing is not stable. Yeah.
So you're in Squamish now.
I'm in Squamish now.
I had a fellow Squamish person on yesterday.
Perfect. We love it here.
Joe Wakefield. So
okay.
He's a mountain bike photographer in Squamish there.
Great. I can't wait to meet him or listen to him about him on your podcast.
So what drew you to your current career?
I mentioned briefly that I used to work with youth. When I was 12, my parents were sort of looking for something to keep my brother and I out of trouble. So they signed us up to volunteer at the community center and work in summer camps. I think it stuck for both of us, but I would say that I took it a lot more seriously than my brother. I think up until I was like 16 or 17, my brother and I are a year apart. So a lot of what I did was usually within the footsteps of my brother or was overshadowed by my brother because he's one of those like child prodigies that's super smart. So hard to not be inspired by a guy like that. I wanted to do everything he did. So I think when I became a teenager, I was trying to self-actualize a bit, and the community center was where I found a place that felt really safe and good for my growth. So I worked with I worked with children until I was 16. And then I started volunteering at the youth center. And during that time, Maple Ridge has a really great skateboarding program. They have an indoor skate park in the youth center. And then during the time that I was in high school, in tandem with the city, they built a skate park at the high school outdoors where I was going to school. And I think in contrast to the photography industry where there's not a lot of women and it's mostly men, the people that work in child and youth services, there's a lot of really incredible women that care about people. And I was really fortunate to have a group of women who were really progressive and believed a lot in fostering my creativity. I was a pretty introverted kid, so there were 2 women that worked there in particular who made it their priority to, make sure that I was doing what made me happy. And at the time it was photography. It was sort of the thing that allowed me to interact with people intimately without having to have conversations that were maybe uncomfortable for a 14 or 15-year-old.
For sure.
So yeah, at the age of 18, they started letting me dip my toes into youth work. And then from 19 to 23, before I moved to Whistler, I worked as a youth worker at the youth center.
Gives you a perspective on life.
Yeah. And also, youth are amazing. They're the best. They're so fun to hang out with. they have such an incredible way of looking at the world, and hard things are actually not that hard. I feel like they really put things into perspective. And I think I couldn't possibly be the person I was or interact with clients or people the way that I do without that experience working at the youth center. So it really is sort of the backbone of my entire upbringing, I would say. So yeah, around that time, there was a woman, Carissa Keenan, who is now a teacher in Maple Ridge, and we were peers. We ran summer camps together. And at the time that I started volunteering at the youth center, she was a youth worker. And she was really, really passionate about the skateboard community and bringing people into the fold through skateboarding, whether they were boys or girls. But obviously they were mostly boys. So she just had this like unruly community of skateboarder boys who would show up every week to skateboard. And she always put on these community events that were really powerful. And her way to involve me in those events is to have me take photos of them. And then, she would print the pictures of skateboarders. One thing I've learned about people who do sports is that they can never deny a clip or a photo of themselves. So that was sort of how she got them to keep coming back. She would give them these printed photos that she would take of them. And she just sort of brought me in to take photos of all these events and be a part of the skateboard community in a really cool and intimate way. And as a result of that, that sort of turned into snowboarding and surfing down the line. So
that's amazing. It's so cool when you can open up with youth and they're just themselves with you.
Yeah.
Instead of that, I don't know who I am. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. But when they're passionate about something, especially as a skateboarder, I remember growing up skateboarding. If somebody talked to me about skateboarding, we're talking for hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get a photo back then, of you skateboarding, your mind's blown because
exactly.
It was all film when I started.
Yeah.
That's such a great way into it. So after that, snowboarding obviously became a big thing.
Yeah. My parents we were middle class, maybe slightly below middle class. My mom worked really hard. I mean, when we were kids, my dad was the main breadwinner, but he was a carpenter. And then my mom immigrated from Japan when she met my dad. So she didn't really have a community here, nor did she have a focus. Her postpartum was pretty bad when she had my brother. And so I think my dad brought her home a computing science book for dummies. And he kind of was like, I think you'll like this. And it turns out she was obsessed. So my dad worked and stayed at home to look after us. We were both under the age of 2 when she started going to university for her master's in computing science. And then I think she got her PhD when I was in my 20s, maybe like 25.
That's still such a cool story.
Yeah, she's really amazing. And so I think around the age of 10, they sort of switched roles and he became the stay-at-home dad and she became the main breadwinner. So, but even with her working super hard, we weren't, by any means a super well-off family. So our excursions as a family were limited to camping. We didn't travel much. The one thing we were able to do was we got to go to Japan every summer. Everyone on my mom's side lives in Japan, so they would send us out there as soon as school ended and we would stay until school started. So that was like a really great part of our childhood. But other than that, they couldn't afford to put us in sports or anything like that. So I didn't start doing sports until I didn't start snowboarding until I moved to Whistler. So I was like 22. And at the time I was in university I had gotten my degree in English literature, and then I was moving on to get my bachelor's in linguistics, but I dropped out because linguistics was really hard. It was like math. And I'm an art student at best. So with my mother's blessing, I dropped out of school and I moved to Whistler and decided to learn how to snowboard and to take photos of snowboarding simultaneously.
My daughter, she's 20, what is she, 22 now?
Okay.
Graduated last year with her bachelor's in motion picture arts degree.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, so she just worked on Fear Factor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so as an assistant for sound.
Crazy. That show has been going strong since like the 90s.
Yeah, this was Canada, so Fear Factor Canada.
Okay.
But it was a great opportunity for her to get just kind of dip her toes, right?
Yeah.
Like I like how you said with my mom's blessing. So it
Yeah.
wasn't just a random like, oh, by the way, I'm moving to Whistler and I quit school. Bye.
I mean,
The
it
job.
kind of was like that, but she, my brother and I were not easy teenagers. And she was doing it by herself. As my parents divorced when I was 15. And she had to do everything on her own, and I was an absolute menace when I was in high school. And so was my brother. We weren't easy teenagers, and she didn't have any support. For all of her family, all of our aunts and grandparents were in Japan, so the people that could have kept us in line were limited to the people that worked at the youth center that I spent time with. And when we moved into the house that my parents bought when I was 12, they became friends. My mom insisted on knocking on the neighbors' doors and introducing ourselves. So we sort of adopted this old couple beside us who sort of were like our pseudo grandparents. And so a lot of the time when we were in trouble or going through a transitionary phase in high school, we would just go to our adopted grandparents' house next door. So she did have some help, but yeah, she really, I would say those were probably her most challenging years.
I can relate. I had four on my own for 10 years.
Yeah. And
It was
you
tough.
know what a teenage daughter is like.
And teenage sons. So
Yeah.
it was a tough road.
Yeah.
I left a stable career so I would be at home at a certain time every day. I could make sure that they took care of their stuff before
Yeah.
my hours were all over the map.
Yeah.
I went from making a living to working at a bicycle shop and Tim Hortons
Yeah.
to scrape by, sold my
Yeah.
car, everything, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah.
That struggle made me strong enough to jump after everything I'm interested in.
Yeah. And your children are probably really incredible people as a result of that, So
It's pretty awesome. I have two
yeah.
grandkids now that just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now you're in Whistler.
I'm in Squamish. Oh, I'm in
No,
Whistler. Sorry. Yeah.
we're in your story.
My
We're
life
in
path. Yeah.
Whistler. And you decided to take up two very easy things: snowboarding and pictures of snowboarders.
So great. Yeah, I would say two probably really important things happened to me in that first year that I moved to Whistler. Also, I'm not a planner. I'm not really a goal setter. People seem to think I'm pretty type A and meticulous because I'm a Virgo, but my life is absolute chaos. And I had a business coach at some point in my life, and she was like, don't plan anything. You're a feeler, just see how it goes. So
I got that same advice.
you did. Yeah, it's great advice.
I'm the same way. I was on a podcast and they asked me, "So how do you plan your shoots?" And I was like,
I don't.
"People plan these?"
Yeah.
Like I'm a landscape guy and I've been very lucky with the work I put out and I
Yeah.
they're like, "Okay, so you got this amazing sunrise. How did you plan that?" I was like, "I drove
Showed up.
up and there it was." So
Yeah.
I took a photo. Like
Yeah, exactly.
if I had to plan for a certain light situation or a certain scenario, I would
No
never
bueno.
get the shot. It
Yeah.
would, I would sleep in or I would be like, oh man, I really want a coffee. Oh darn, I missed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the way I am
So
too.
I would say that's principally how I built the first 5 years of my career. Was just by meeting people and seeing how it went. And so there was a woman that worked at Tourism Whistler who was super cool. I guess now that I'm reflecting on it, there were a lot of women along the way. A lot of men too, but I think it's the women that worked in these like brand and creative partnership areas for clients that really were punching for the girls, So there was a woman who worked at Tourism Whistler, which was a great client to have. I had never really had a real client before. I had gotten a job at the community center in Whistler, to run after school programs and summer camps for kids. So I was still simultaneously doing that when I got here. And then I was sort of tinkering away at taking photos. It probably took me about 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years, just doing jobs for free and odd jobs, shooting for brands in town for me to be able to quit the community center job in order to make enough income. At the same time, it was sort of the era of brands really focusing on social media as a marketing tool. So at that time what was I doing? I had built my own following on Instagram because, sorry, I skipped a whole chapter before I moved to Whistler.
All right. Well, I could
rewind.
I can do this thing and I can cut it and move it and we can make it happen. Yeah.
Right.
Let's hear the chapter.
So while I was at the youth center, 2 women, Carissa Keenan and Jen Bailey, they were pretty instrumental in pushing the envelope to make sure that I was taking photos. I really sucked at taking photos. But, when you start taking photos, you're experimental. So all the photos that you think are amazing are not amazing. And I also don't, I don't understand art. I wanted to go to art school. That was like my plan number one. Well, I wanted to be 2 things when I was a kid. I wanted to be a doctor without borders. And my parents always thought that the doctor was safe to be for my brother because he was super smart. So they were like, she's going to go to art school. She'll do something in the arts. And so I was like, maybe I'll go to art school or maybe I'll be a doctor so I can go work in a poverty-stricken country. I don't know. So during my phase at the youth center, these 2 women, they were inviting me to skate events. They were getting me to shoot like friends' weddings and friends' events and things like that. And Jen, she had made me enter this photo competition. And the winner got to go to Costa Rica with a bunch of media people. And at the time, when was this? Like the 2010s. Instagram was sort of just becoming a thing. It was totally unheard of to just connect with people on the internet at that point, I would say. And so I won this trip with this travel company called Kontiki, and they were giving the winners, they were picking a photographer, a writer, and a videographer. And all of them were women, and they brought them all on this trip to Costa Rica, and they paired them with the best videographer, best writer, and best photographer at the time, but best being what those people were doing on social media. So they were like the disruptors, people that all of a sudden had followers on Instagram and were using them as a marketing tool for their business. So the best YouTuber, the best blogger, and the best Instagram photographer. So I went on this trip and I was still in university, but I met all these people who were living quite unconventional lives because they were making a living creating content. And I was like, that's crazy that you can do that. So I kind of went home from that trip. I learned a lot and I kind of thought, why can't I do that? I don't really want to. So I had amassed a bit of a following from that trip. And then I started shooting for the covers of magazines, lots of small publications. I don't know if you know of the magazine Monster Children. They're a really cool Australian publication, but they had taken a liking to my work. So they, helped me write a couple articles. And so during that time, I was focusing on a lot of photo blogs and journal articles for magazines and companies all around the world. Then I stayed on with Kontiki and I started shooting a bunch of their trips. I would just go on trips, which was so fun to do when you were 19. And then I kind of got recruited by a different travel company called Intrepid. Kontiki wasn't paying me. They were just paying me to have these experiences. And as a 19-year-old, that was sick. I got to see the world with people my own age and partied while I was doing it. So it was great. And then when I moved to Whistler, this other travel company, Intrepid, which is for an older demographic, had hired me. So I started traveling with them and taking photos. And so through all of that, I also understood fundamentally how to use social media for brands and for myself. I was working for an outerwear company and running their ambassador program, which wasn't really a thing back then either. And so I had sort of created an athlete team and was marketing all their stuff on social media for them. So I was pretty well spoken in that space at that time. So in Whistler, I didn't really want to be working at the community center anymore. So I took on a lot of social media jobs for a lot of local businesses in Whistler. And then for one of them was a life coaching company. And as, you know, a bonus for working for the company, they set you up with a life coach. So I had a really wonderful life coach who, during that period was kind of like, why are you doing social media jobs? You hate it. And I was like, you're right. I do. I actually really hate being on social media. It stresses me out. And so she said, quit them all and only take photos. And I said, but I don't think I can. And she said, why not? And then she said, you're a feeler, so you can do it. So I said, okay. So then I quit, and then it ended up being totally fine. So,
well, you look at your client list, people you've worked with.
Yeah, I guess.
You made it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as a freelancer, it's hard to look back and give yourself flowers for all the work that you've accomplished. But I think as a freelancer, you're often looking at the like horizon to be like, what else? You know, what's next? It's seldom that I look back and think I'm pretty proud of myself for all that I've done, you know, because the world of freelances fluctuates, you know. Sometimes you're like not getting any work and you think that your photos, you're like, this is it for me now. There's no longer a need for my photos. I'm expired. And then the next season comes and you get a bunch of work. So who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took me until last year to look at what I've accomplished in my short 6-year career as a photographer.
Yeah.
And then this podcast. And I finally like said to myself, I'm like, you know what? I'm proud of you.
Yeah. Okay,
so
amazing.
Important.
I'm proud of you too.
Thank you. It's so important to be proud of ourselves for even the smallest accomplishment. So you've taken on all this client work. You've worked with some huge brands.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm reading the list right now on your website. That's why I'm looking.
Oh, okay. Also, that website is 10 years old. That's on my to-do list this year, is to make a new website.
I launched mine yesterday, so
great. Congratulations.
It's very basic, but it does the job.
Yeah.
So I mean, so if this is 10 years old, you worked with a couple airlines, you worked with Red Bull, Buff Hardware, Kentucky and Intrepid Travels, Sanuk Footwear, Bloodstone, Tentree, Sage Wellness, Thermarest, Sitka, Westcomb. I can't pronounce the next one. Burton, Corona, Tourism Whistler, MSR Gear, Monster Children, Pan Pacific, Spy Optics. Like, have you ever just read that and gone, oh, wow, I'm proud of myself for that? Like,
yeah, I mean,
that's
I guess I just don't quantify my accomplishments through the brands I've worked with. I guess I should. I don't think I've looked at that list in many years. And even now you're reading it out to me and like the imposter in me is like, I've done so many more since then. And
that's a really hard part of this industry though, is we all have imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, my work at the community center made me realize that I want to work with people. That was what I really liked doing. And maybe the thing that arguably is what I'm the best at. Obviously, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've rubbed people the wrong way. There are lots of people that don't like me because of things that I've foolishly said, you know, and my intention is never to hurt people, but I'm human and imperfect in a lot of ways. But I think where I quantify my value is the relationships I've built with people over the years and what those people mean to me and what I mean to them. And what I'm doing to make space for something larger than photography or Instagram, you know, like if Instagram got deleted tomorrow, I would hope that I have enough resources with human connection to do something else with my life. And maybe that's where I see my biggest growth, or I see, you know, the areas that I'm super proud of myself because I've changed how I do things. I was like a pretty weird, avoidant kid. So, and, you know, contrary to popular belief, I'm an introvert. I think that a lot of people think that I'm an extrovert because I'm able to turn it on and be present when I need to, but nothing I love more than sitting at home by myself. So
I
I think,
fully get it.
yeah,
I'm the same way. And that's
yeah,
why I think I'm so proud of the work I've been able to accomplish the last 2 years is I have to pep talk myself to leave the house in the morning to go to work.
yeah,
And then I wanted to talk to people on Zoom that I've never met,
yeah.
produce it, and throw it out into the world for people to critique.
It's crazy.
It's not something most introverts want to do, but it's also something where we have that spark and that feeling that, you know what, I can make something from this.
Yeah,
I'm just going to risk it. And if it works, awesome. If people rip me apart, hey, I can disappear. It's not a problem.
totally. Yeah. And turns out that they didn't rip you apart, and what you're providing people is really important. So I think more often than not, we need things like this to connect us. And I think that working as a photographer in this industry can be quite a lonely endeavor, and to your point of you were tired of people backstabbing you and going behind your back in the industry. I think that still happens a lot, but I think the space is becoming more filled with multifaceted people, especially women who care a lot beyond just taking photos, and often I feel when women take photos, they have a story to tell. I'm not saying that men don't do that either, but there's a lot more that got them to arrive at taking those photos. So yeah, I would say if I were to pat myself on the back and say, I'm really proud of you, it would be through all of the relationships that I've made and how I've grown as a person and how I interact with others to make them feel comfortable and safe to shoot with me. I think my approach to photography is community minded first. But again, like I said, I'm not perfect. I'm sure that I fucked up some communities and some people trying to get there. So, yeah.
I mean, you did it young too. So sometimes when you're eager and you really want to prove yourself, we make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, at 50, I still fuck up and make mistakes. So there's not much that you can, we can't look back and be like, oh man, I should have done this, because that was just a speed bump in the journey.
Totally.
Right? So now you've learned so many different ways to approach things, to take care of things.
Yeah.
You start shooting snowboarding,
yeah.
And then you transition. So now you brought in surfing.
Yeah, I think with all of these sports, they start because I don't know how to do the sport, so I want to learn how to do them. But one thing I do know how to do is take photos. So if I can do both simultaneously, if I suck at the sport, like I said, athletes can never say no to a clip or a pic. So at least if I can't really do the sport that well, if I'm at least shooting it, even if the photos are mediocre because I'm learning, I'll just go with friends who are okay with mediocre photos, And so I think that my entry into the sport was because I personally wanted to learn how to do it myself, and entering into it in adulthood is harder than getting to be in a club when you're a kid. So how I got into that space was offering to take photos of people, and getting good enough at it that they let me hang. So yeah.
You got some amazing surf photos. So I think that's a testament.
Listen, you're going to talk to Marcus Palladino, who will tell you about surf photography, because he is hands down one of the best ones on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And he's been working really hard at it. I remember when there were crusty old dudes and there were only 2 of them in Tofino. And then everyone kept being like, oh, there's this kid, Marcus Palladino, new on the scene, and he worked so hard at it. And he is honestly one of the most unbelievable photographers, also one of the nicest people ever. So he will tell you how hard surf photography is. Whereas surf photography for me is a hobby. Half the time I'm I didn't get that. And it's an accident. Surf photography is a happy accident. It's kind of like when I catch a wave and I'm crazy that I caught that. So that's how I feel about surf photography. I don't feel as much precision in it as I do in my snowboard photography or my other commercial work. But yeah, it's a work in progress.
Yeah. You know what? Marcus was the nicest guy ever.
Yeah.
But we connected. We had a lot of personal things that we've both shared.
Yeah.
and that we both connected on. So we were able to continue.
Yeah.
But you gotta take the chance. I mean, you say you got lucky, but you can still see your style in every photo you take as I browse
Yeah, sorry.
browse your
That
Instagram.
that might have been my imposter syndrome coming out, but thank you very much.
What has your experience been like trying to get clients, things like that? Like what would love to do is share your formula, not your secret sauce that you'd use, but
I'll tell you everything you need to know. I'll tell anyone my secret sauce. That's what I think the best thing about this type of work is that there's so much room for everyone. And the lack mentality doesn't get you far in this industry. I'm like a cup half full person. So if you're sitting on all your eggs in your basket and you don't want to share any of them, I feel like you're going to hit the proverbial glass ceiling pretty quickly, but I wish I had a secret sauce. I don't know that I have one. I'm pretty generous with my time. I have often worked for brands that pay me a lot of money, that maybe it's not the most inspiring brand, but I take those jobs because, well, one, to get paid a lot is nice, but also because it makes space. If I do one really big job that pays, let's say $30,000 to $40,000, then I can take on the female-owned businesses that only have $200 to pay for a campaign shoot, So,
I love that.
Yeah, it's like a curve, I guess. Sometimes you take bigger jobs that maybe aren't the most amazing or creative in order to have more creative flexibility to work with smaller brands that are just beginning, at the forefront of their marketing, which is really exciting. So I would say that I think a lot of the mentorship that I learned when I was starting the space was men telling me that I had to set a price, and if I didn't, anything below that price, I shouldn't accept. And, knowing your worth is so important. People always say that, but what is your worth, I guess? Is your worth a monetary dollar sign that you refuse to take any work that is below that dollar sign? Or is your worth intrinsic and externally valuable, where you work for this brand that only can pay you $500 for a shoot, or you work for them for free and then they hire you for the super expensive campaigns. One of my favorite clients that I work for every summer, they always hire me for a big campaign shoot. And those who work in my industry know that the outdoor industry is hurting right now. People's buying habits are different and the economy is definitely down in terms of how people are consuming outdoor gear. So meaning that the first thing to go are the creative campaign photo shoots where they hire freelancers, they usually try to do it internally. So last summer we had a pretty big shoot with this client, and he was saying this was like our one big shoot this year. We couldn't really afford to hire anyone else, and we knew that we would get the most. And that client is a lot of work, but they are my favorite client. They're one of my favorite clients. He's just so wonderful to work for, and he always lets me have creative freedom, and they pay me really fairly. So I love working for them, not only because I get paid really well, but also because the job is super fun. And that was really nice. I was like, wow, you could have had so many people who are dying to shoot for this brand, and you chose to spend your marketing budget on me, which is really amazing. And I started shooting for them 10 years ago. And it was just because I thought of something I wanted to do. Like I thought of some trip that I wanted to go on, and I asked them for some free gear. And then that was how I made my way into he's like the creative director for the brand. And I had sent them some of my photos. They were super happy. They shared a couple of them. They used them on their website. And he approached me at a snowboard event at Mount Baker and was like, hey, we don't know each other, but I've seen your name show up and I've seen your face show up on our marketing assets. I'm the creative director for this brand. And I was like, that's crazy. That's crazy that you picked me out of this crowd and you were like, what's up? And then he came and introduced himself. We had a chat. And then that following summer was the first time that they properly paid me. So I guess all that to say, I think my secret sauce is to be generous with your time and the my approach to working with clients isn't because I'm trying to get paid from them. My approach is to have some sort of long-lasting relationship where I don't know where they're going to mention my name in a room full of people because I did something for free. And so I think there might be some photographers who are like that, you're watering down the market. It's bad for the thing. And I do agree with that to a certain degree. I think that if people are pitching for the same job and there's a agreed on market value and you're pitching $5,000 lower just to get the job, I firmly believe in you get what you pay for. So if you go for the cheaper person, you're going to get a lower quality production. But I don't agree with setting a monetary standard for yourself and not having any wiggle room to perhaps gain something intrinsically that's going to lead to a different experience that might be even better down the road.
That was a wonderful way to explain that.
Yeah.
It's really neat. So I had an experience. I was out with some friends and we were just chatting and this guy kept looking at me and I was like, weird. As a dude, you're instantly like defensive, right? You're like,
you're like, what's up, dude?
What are you staring at me for? Like, I don't know you. And he finally walked by and he stopped and he goes, I know you from somewhere, but I don't know where from. And I was like, okay. Kind of like listed. I mean, I work in the community. I've lived here for 20 years. I don't, maybe somewhere there. And he's like, no, it's your voice. And I said, okay. And then
you do have a very good podcast voice. I almost blurted that out right when you answered. I was like, wow, he's got a great podcast voice.
That's just my normal voice. I've been blessed. And that's what it was. He was like, my buddy goes, oh, he has a podcast. And then he goes, oh yeah, which one? And he looks at on the table and then I have my decals. So I don't know, you can see them, they're here.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, I listened to that one. It's so freaking good. And blah, blah. And I was like, oh, awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
But it's neat
so
when the thing that you put your heart into and then people can pick you out from anywhere.
Yeah.
So same with your experience with the marketing director. He saw you and he's like, I know who that is. And look where it's led. Yeah. Right. And that's another thing. I'm sponsored by Harlow Lighting. So Harlow is one of the largest lighting companies in the industry. Okay. So if you ever have a job where you need some beautiful lighting, I have almost their whole catalog in my garage.
Wow. And, great.
So from 3,000 watt, it's all steady light, no strobe, but 3,000 watts down to like their minis and everything.
I could have used that yesterday. I needed a steady light yesterday.
But if you do, I mean, we can always make arrangements for you to use one and give me your feedback on it.
Perfect.
So, and I have their weather resistant ones as well.
Oh, cool.
So if and they're battery powered, they don't have to be plugged in.
Perfect. Portable. So, we love it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm offering it to anybody who's in British Columbia, like local to me, local enough to me, to get out and use them. And
you should do for your future photography plan with your youth, you should do something about like shooting with continuous light and models or something.
Yep. That's
I can set it up for you. Beautiful. Perfect.
There we go. We got the in.
Yay.
But I love that connection that we made right off the rip. Like I was just telling you about my plan for my project and you're like, I worked with youth. Like, I mean, that's the coolest thing ever. And getting into a community center space would be something that would make it easier. The kids could be there. They're already there. Yeah. We could use the cameras. The cameras could be turned back in at night.
For sure.
Right. And then we could meet at the community center and have the get together. Right. And it's been neat because it's been some really, really talented people who were just so amped on this project. You know, like one of my favorite photographers in the world is Devin Allen out of Baltimore. And he became, his whole career started because he got, when George Floyd was killed, he was taking images of the uprising of the community coming together to, protest the brutality that was happening to them. And he had a Fuji X-T1 and he was instantly sending photos to his phone and posting them. And by doing that, he was showing it quicker than anyone. And that's when Time Magazine approached him for the cover.
Wow.
So that started his career. And now he works for Under Armour. He's got his own line of clothing from Under Armour
Wow.
as a
Yeah.
photographer.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
it's such a cool story. So he's on board, and a whole bunch of other people are just like, I'm down. And I'm
Yeah.
indigenous, so for me, like, I'm from Merritt, so
Yeah.
I'm Lower Nicola, I'm Interior Salish.
Yeah.
So when you started by the unceded territory, I was like, that's the coolest shit ever. I loved it. Thank you for paying respects to the land.
Of course.
But I just think that there's so much crap and negativity in the world right now.
Yeah.
Kids are dealing and being bombarded with all of this BS that
Mm-hmm.
if we can find one way to offer just the slightest spark of interest
Mm-hmm.
outside of the BS,
Mm-hmm.
we're all winning.
Yep.
And that's my
For
goal.
sure.
My goal is to
Great.
build a community of people, including like with yourself and with Marcus and everybody else that I've been talking to
Mm-hmm.
find ways to offer solution
Mm-hmm.
that isn't, that shows like you don't have to get a degree. If you
Mm-hmm.
have a passion, you can make it your career.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard work. You have to be prepared to say for the no's. You have to be prepared for like failing on a shoot. It
Mm-hmm.
happens to every single person,
Yep.
and it sucks. Like I shot a wedding. I don't do weddings. That's not my thing. But a buddy of mine, he loves my work, and he really wanted me to shoot their wedding.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, it's not my thing. I shoot,
If I must.
but he's like my brother, so I was like, I'm there. I
Okay.
gave him like a really, really low rate.
Yeah.
And I said, give me that plus a room, and I'm there.
Okay.
So he did it. And I shot the photos, and I was so critical of myself. And then I sent
Yeah.
them. I mean, I don't ever shoot 2,200 photos. I shot 2,200 photos.
Okay.
And I sent them to them. And I'm like, just pick the ones you want. I'll edit them, and we'll go from
Yeah.
there. And they just loved them all.
Perfect. That they'll take everything. Thank you. One of each. Thanks.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm going to do 3 of their favorites. I'm going to print them on
Okay. Nice.
13 by 19 bamboo
Nice.
paper. So,
Wow. That'll be so nice.
yeah. So it was a weird experience for me to step out of my own comfort zone.
Yeah.
And make that part happen.
Yeah.
How did you learn to deal with rejection and the no's that come with trying to get jobs in this industry?
I don't know. I think I don't know. I feel like I think I just I'm an avoidant person, so I think I just delete those things out of my head as soon as they happen. I'm like, cool, no problem. Moving on to the next one.
Yeah.
I think that I don't know, growing up in the 2000s, like I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent.
Yep. No problem.
I feel like maybe some of the questions that people have around how I arrived here would be around my ethnicity. How did a woman of color make it in this space? They don't really exist. And when they do exist, you're like, whoa, who are you? Like, tell me what's up, I think my mom was pretty insistent. I guess both my parents were about being fiercely independent. So I think to a fault, I'm pretty independent. And I think growing up in the early 2000s, like it was the height of Asian jokes because there's a lot of Asian people in BC. And I don't know, like maybe it's part of my internalized racism, but like I remember just thinking it was really funny. Like I'm okay with being the butt of the joke or the fall guy, And I don't know if that's my internalized environment growing up or if it's just innately who I am, but I think how we grew up, just without sounding like a stereotype, like you just laugh it off, put your head down and get the work done. That's sort of always been how we've sort of done things in our family. So, and it was also what my peers were doing around me. So I think that everyone has their struggles and their challenges. And my personal flavor is to just like brush it off and move on. I think in more recent years, when I've started going to therapy, I get like really nitpicky or like triggered, or, my favorite flavor of anxiety is nobody likes me. I suck. And so I think in more,
Favorite
yeah,
flavor of
yeah,
anxiety. It's like
yeah,
Baskin and Robbins, the 31
yeah, it's
flavors.
delicious. It's so great. It's so crippling. It just makes me, ugh. Anyway, so I think going to therapy helps because it
100%.
makes me be introspective on why these things are coming up and how I'm gonna work my way through them without just like tampering it down and being like, I just got to put my head down and get it done. So I think in combination with learning these things about myself, sometimes it's okay not to put your head down, and I've gotten better at setting boundaries and saying no. But I think in the early days of my career, I said yes to everything. I felt like I needed to be liked by everyone. I needed to do everything according to what other people wanted without really having any autonomy. So I think a lot of times when things happen, nowadays I'm hopefully able to sit down with it and understand the part that I played in getting the answer no, and having a moment to be like, oh well, that really sucks, and then moving on. I'm a bit of a solution oriented person, so I would say that uh that's just how I move through things. And I think in terms of the fact that there were a couple barriers to entry for someone like me to get into this space, I'm used to just battering my way through it. And I guess there's a risk, and I guess I fear talking about them at times because I don't want to make it sound like those situations define how I arrived here. I do what I do because it makes me happy and it makes other people happy, hopefully. And so obviously the things that were hard for me are things that are important to my history, but they aren't they probably make me move through things a lot quicker than most. But as a result of that, because like I'm just like a get it done, sometimes I lack compassion for it's a little bit problematic because sometimes I'm like, it's not that hard. Like I can see it being done so quickly. And sometimes people don't operate that way. So I think that is like maybe my biggest thing that I'm dealing with now is that like having compassion for myself and for others when their path is not as linear as mine is, because mine wasn't linear. I just don't remember what it took to get here, I think.
Yeah. But sometimes, we all have those moments where we're like visually, and it sounds like we may have the same kind of mentality when it comes to this, is like visually we're like, oh, it's a right, a left, a right, and we're done.
Yeah.
But trying to explain that vision to someone so they understand what we're feeling or seeing, it kind of takes this big around the world approach that takes a little bit longer for them to clue, like you're 3/4 of the way through your explanation. They're like, I don't get
it. Yeah. I feel like it's like a math problem that in school you had to write down the steps on how you got to the answer, but I only know how to like get to the answer. I can't specifically tell you how I got to the answer.
Yeah. Any big fun projects coming up that you can talk about?
I hit a bit of a burnout last spring. I also lost a lot of people last year. I feel like both of my grandparents passed away, which were pretty important. My grandpa was a medical doctor, and his escape from medicine was to take photos. So the first camera I ever used was one of his old film cameras. So
I'm sorry to hear.
Thank you.
Not about the camera, but about your grandfather.
Yeah, it's complicated because they are such an important part of my ancestry and like my identity in Japan. So I think, and then another pretty important mentor in photography, at least specifically for women in snowboarding, he was an iconic man. He also passed away in the spring. So I think that it was a difficult year. I was learning to grow a new muscle of grief that I hadn't ever really had to grow before. So I think it hindered my ability to show up for people in ways that I normally am used to. I think I think I'm used to giving everything to everyone all the time. But this year was really good for me in terms of like holding my energy close and focusing on what's important and what's not important. And so I took a break this summer and I didn't take on any photo projects. I actually said no to everything. I traveled a lot. I also broke my wrist. So that kind of stopped me from being able to shoot as aggressively as I normally do. So I think I've never had that relationship with photography before. Like it's always been this solace for me. But for like the first time ever in the last decade, I didn't want anything to do with it,
Yeah.
which was pretty confusing for me. But it was also really fun because I didn't feel the financial burden of having, for the first time ever, I feel like I didn't have to work to get paid to pay my bills. And I actually was just able to take a break,
Yeah.
which I've never done before. It's always been like feast or famine mindset. And so it really allowed me to make space for different creative projects. And then it kind of like made me realize like, oh, I actually really do love doing this, but maybe the terms are a little bit different now.
Yeah.
So
we can shout out Jeff. His passing was traumatic for a lot of people.
yeah.
He was a legend. I remember him from back in the Seymour days.
Yeah.
And when I heard that news, even though I'd been removed from the sport for a long time at that point, it was devastating.
Yeah.
Lots of, a whole bunch of really good people were lost that day.
Yeah.
And, I feel for his wife, Leanne,
And his child. Yeah.
and his child, and all his close friends. So,
Yeah.
maybe we just say, Jeff, this podcast is for you, brother.
For sure. Yeah.
I appreciate, I didn't know him personally, but I appreciate everything he's done for everyone. I've read everything he's done. I've seen him numerous times, the way he interacts with people. More people need to be like Jeff. And I think, we need to make those stickers, be like Jeff.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah, he was something special for women and women snowboarding. I think his entry into my life is relatively recent, but there's not a lot of men in this space that impact women in this space the way that he does. He was a safe space. I mean, the community of women that shoot snow sports is really small, and he impacted each of them in a specific way. And I feel like no man in the space of snowboarding has ever made me feel valuable and important the way that he did. So yeah, devastating loss to, like you said, so many people. And yeah, it really sucks. I feel like there are a really small percentage of people that are like that in this space. So
yeah.
Yeah.
It was weird for me because he was on my list of people to reach out to.
Yeah.
To have him come on because of the, you start reading stories.
Yeah.
And you start really feeling like who he is.
Yeah.
And nothing changes. Everybody has the same story of him.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy to think, like,
yeah,
life's pretty fragile.
Definitely. I think maybe, my biggest takeaway was people had like the most amazing things to say about him during his funeral. And I kind of was like, damn, none of us ever got to tell him that he did all that for us, And like, I think as adults, it's really hard to accept those compliments, especially in this space. Like, I feel like a lot of people, like we talked about, have imposter syndrome. Maybe everything nice that you've said about me, I've been like, but so I feel like it's really hard to accept feedback, whether positive or negative, but I feel like we don't tell each other enough when we think that someone else is doing remarkable work. And his impact felt really deeply, but I don't think it was like a emotion. All of these emotions came out from everyone, of all these people saying all these like profound and incredible things about him. And I kind of was like, damn, I wish he got to know that this is how important he was, you know? So I've started doing this thing where, even though it like cripples me with anxiety, to tell people when I feel that they are amazing. I think I still do that anyways, but maybe my learning in this is that I also have to accept when people want to say that about me. Recently for my birthday, my boyfriend planned a pizza party and he invited a bunch of my friends over, and a bunch of the group had dwindled down, but then maybe like 10 of them had remained, and they all were standing around the kitchen island. And for some reason, somebody was like, let's all go around the circle and say what we love about Mirae. And literally, I like sank to the floor. I was like, please don't. I literally can't think of anything worse right now. And actually, it was like the most beautiful thing ever. Like all of these memories and thoughts that these people that I like loved so much have about me. I was like, damn, I'm in that moment. I was like, I'm going to accept this, because maybe these are things that we should be saying to each other that we never get to say until it's too late. And so I think I'm going to get better at accepting that the thoughts, the really nice thoughts that people have about me are things that like I want to hold really close to me and help me, those things really help propel me forward. So yeah, I think that's my biggest growing, and to not hesitate to tell people what they mean to me when it comes up. So yeah.
It's hard to accept praise or people's positive memories of you.
Yeah.
Right. Like I grew up just outside of Portland, Oregon for the first 15 years of my life.
Yeah.
Lived in a small town called Milwaukee, and I terrorized that town on my skateboard. Terrorized it. To the point where the video store owner used to come out and try to threaten us with bats. It was awesome. But
yeah, that sounds like super skateboard core. Like that would be a really positive memory if I was a core skateboarder.
Yeah, so I went back for the first time. I hadn't been back since my dad passed in '99. So
Okay.
It was like 21 years.
Wow. Okay.
And so we're walking around, and I'm showing my wife around this town that I grew up in, and it's not very big.
Yeah.
And we walk around a corner, and I'm like, man, this corner store is still here. I used to come here in high school for lunch because they had the big fries, and you could get a drink for $1.50.
Yeah.
But right next to it, there's a store called Made in Milwaukee, and it used to be the video store. The guy used to come out and threaten us.
Yeah.
So I started laughing, and I walked in because I remembered he had this planter box that he ended up putting this spike railing on because we used to
so you could do.
Yeah. So I walked in, and I'm looking at the guy behind the counter, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I recognize him, but I don't know from where. So we start looking around. I grabbed some shirts and some other local art. It's all Oregon-based artists in the store. Cool. That's it.
Yeah.
You can get my stickers and stuff are in the store now. But we start talking, and he's like, he remembers me, and he starts talking about the stories of my skateboarding. And, I went way back to high school. He was like, yeah, I remember when you lit the theater on fire with the lights because they were too hot and you went too high. And I was like, oh my God, you remember that?
You're not supposed to get caught for a prank like that.
There was no prank. It was during a practice for a performance. I just pulled the lights up too high and it hit the curtain. Yeah, that was my claim to fame.
Okay.
But then I went back, I think the following weekend, because I went back down to pick up my dog. Okay. And I had got a new puppy from a friend down there. So I took my son and my daughter. But we went into the same store because they wanted some shirts too. And he was there again. And he starts talking to them about, oh, your dad, he's a local legend. Everybody still talks about all these things, like skateboard things I did. And I'm like, kind of like starting to back up and walk out of the store because I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I don't know how to feel, but it was neat that all the stories I've shared with my children about my love of skateboarding and why it's so important to who I am was just shared by another person that they don't even know. Yeah.
And like someone that ultimately is somewhat of a stranger to you, but like you have this, you have this iconic imprint in his brain.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
It felt pretty neat, So I was like, yep, that was me. So for the rest of the trip, like we had to pick up the dog and drive straight back to Canada. But the whole way
Okay.
home, I was like, yep, your dad's an important fella.
I'm a ledge. Yeah.
So the couple final questions here for you.
Yeah.
Your personal connection between your creativity and mental health. And then the last
Okay.
question is, where can people find you?
Okay. Personal connection between creativity and mental health. Hmm.
This is the question that catches everybody.
Yeah, I guess I just want to articulate it properly. My mental health fluctuates. I don't know. I think that maybe photography is part one, the means to an end, but also part two, a way to escape. And like I said, I was pretty introverted growing up. I think how I was raised was perhaps unique, but not unique. I had a close relationship with my dad, but on the flip side of that, he was very physically and verbally abusive to my brother and I. He never laid a finger on my mom, but we definitely caught the brunt of, I don't want to say a cliche, but it was sort of a cliche. He was a white man who was 20 years older than my mom. She was an immigrant. He isolated her, and we didn't have much of a community because he did isolate us. So how I learned to navigate people, I would say, was skewed because of, my brother and I were at the hands of some pretty gnarly abuse. And so I think our coping mechanisms were set on a foundation of like maybe to keep your cards close and to not trust a lot of people. And so I don't think mental health is a term that's relatively new age, I would say. For me anyways, I didn't start going to therapy until probably 3 or 4 years ago properly. I've always had confidants and mentors. I've always been the type of person that, talks about everything quite openly. So I don't fear talking about my history with others. The only time I worry is that sometimes I don't want to trauma dump on people, but I think having photography maybe turned into a way to connect with people without having to be verbally or physically intimate with them, because taking photos of them creates a bit of space. And how maybe I did it in back when I started was that I would just be in the periphery, I wouldn't be interacting with the subject face to face. It would just be like off to the side, or I would just be catching them doing something that they didn't think was going to be photographed. So I think in some ways it was an escape to try to connect with people. I think I want my desire in life is to have deep and intimate connections with people. I hate small talk. I'm really bad at it. To the point where like sometimes I think I'm autistic because I'm like, I don't know how to connect. And so I think having a camera allowed me to get straight to the business with people. It like cut out all the unnecessary masks that people put up. When you first meet people, you have a mask on. I think that photography allows me to connect with people where everyone just has to drop their mask, me included, being the person that captures them. I have to be really vulnerable and authentic with people in order for them to show that side to me, So I think by spending time with others, I learn more about myself, which is ultimately my goal in life. So perhaps what started as an escape to a place that maybe felt a bit safer has now become something that rejuvenates and protects me when I'm not feeling great or if I'm feeling low. Me personally, yes, I'm an introvert, but being around other people is what heals me. I need to share my experiences with others, and I need others to share their experiences with me in order to get better and feel good. I'm sure in theory, some people would say that you have to be able to work through that all on your own, but I need other people. I am nothing without others to pull me through. And I think in the moments where I've struggled the most, especially this year, it's the community that shows up for me when like I'm not super fun to hang out with, you know, and they hold up a mirror to show me that I'm actually all good. So I think my creativity comes from other people, and from other people is where I feel safe and I feel that I'm able to grow the most. So without others, I feel like I don't have a connection to my mental health. I can be introspective and I can unpack why I feel a certain way or react a certain way or why I don't react a certain way. I think those are all things that are important to do for myself, but my community is what makes me feel motivated, feel inspired, feel better. You know, sometimes they don't make me feel good either, but those are all important things to help me grow. So yeah, hopefully that wasn't a super long-winded way of explaining.
I fully get it. I grew up
Yeah.
with, I was adopted.
Yeah.
And all my childhood, I was told not to tell anybody I was an Indian because they treat me different. And there was a lot of, I shared a lot of this in an episode with James Rice in the show, so I won't go back into it. But there's a lot of abuse and a lot of trauma from my father, who I actually didn't talk to for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then I reconnected when my daughter was 3, my oldest.
Yeah.
Because I felt he deserved to meet her.
Yeah.
And then we decided we'd be friends instead of that, you know, father-son situation.
Yeah.
And we planned a fishing trip to Alaska. And then that was 98 when that happened. In May of 99, he passed away. So in a way, I'm glad that I was able to, I never forgave him until a year ago when I was in therapy.
Yeah.
Which therapy is not a bad thing. It's not a bad word.
Yeah.
It's okay to not be okay.
We love therapy.
It makes everybody happy.
Yeah.
I love it. I love when you go deep in therapy and you feel tired and stressed out that you shared so much, but then you realize that, wait a minute, I feel lighter.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that I feel your story, and thank you for being willing to share that with me.
Yeah, I've been on a couple of podcasts, but again, like I said, I shy away from sharing that part of my upbringing, I suppose, because I don't want people to think that it changes everything that I've received. You know, I don't know. I guess I worry that I don't want it to be a crutch for how I arrived here, but perhaps that resilience is how I arrived here. You know, we didn't have any money, so everything that I have is because I worked super hard to get it. I didn't get, if I wanted to go to university, I had to pay for it. If I wanted to take a course, I had to pay for it. All of my camera equipment I had to do when I was a teenager and didn't have any money, you know? So my first credit card, I maxed it out on a season's pass and a camera. So, and it took me like 5 years to pay it off. So I think, I shy away from telling people that because I just don't want them. But again, like, who cares what other people think?
It's an important part of your story. And it shows that, you know, even when we have these traumas and childhood issues with our person who's supposed to make us feel safe.
Yeah.
That we can still achieve. It doesn't define us as we grow.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm very proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's complicated because I still love him very much, you know. It's not like, in a lot of ways he also nurtured my brother and my mom and I. So and a lot of the best parts of me are because of him. So yeah, it's complicated, but
very much
we're growing. Yeah.
Where's the best place for people to find you?
I mean, you went to my website, but don't go to my website. It's so old. Please wait for a new one. But you can find me on Instagram, or that's it essentially, or my email. My Instagram has all of my information. So send me a DM, say hello. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for your story and sharing it with us.
Likewise. Thank you.
Hope you had a good time.
I had a great time. I can't wait to see where everything goes.
It's a fun journey, and you're in the beginning of this crazy.
That is so crazy.
I call it the quest to 100 episodes. So
perfect. What are we at now? You're at like 70 something.
Well, with recorded ones, I'm at 74.
Okay.
And then I have 50 recordings scheduled between now and December.
Holy crap, that labor is insane.
I put a ton of time into it, but like you said, you got to work hard to get what you want. So
yeah, for sure.
I'm hoping somebody sees the value and decides that, you know what, hey, this might be a podcast we want to financially get behind.
Wondery, where are you at?
Yeah. So
yeah, cool.
We'll see what happens. I mean, it's not gonna make me stop. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep sharing everybody's story.
Amazing.
Because that's such an important part of life, and and we didn't even talk gear. Do you see how easy that was?
Yeah. Don't ask me about gear. I don't know anything.
Yeah, I'm the same way. So I had Thank you for tuning in to the Life of Phys Podcast. I hope today's conversation brought you insight, inspiration, or just a fresh perspective on the creative journey. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to follow, rate, and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps us grow and reach more listeners like you. For updates, behind-the-scene content, and more, please follow us on all social medias at LIFE_OF_PHYS. And don't forget to check out the show notes for links and resources from today's episode. Until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep living the life of creativity.